What's up? How you
Welcome.
doing?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk, and I'm ready to basically fight you.
All right, let's do this.
Even though we're probably going to agree totally on everything. So we're going to have like the same exact 5 list. So
Right.
uh
You know.
but well, welcome everybody to the live show. So I only recently found out how to pronounce my guest's name correctly. Even though I've met him in person, talked to him many times, worked with him on WatCon on the Great Blight, and he allowed me to continue to call him the wrong thing.
It's because everybody says it wrong. So at a certain point, you're like, meh.
But I feel as though now I've mastered it. So it is Daraus Sedai.
So close.
Damn it.
Dariush.
Okay, damn it. Okay, I'm a failure. Welcome. So normally you're a little unique here, and because some people may or may not know who you are. There's a lot of people that do because you're like everywhere, but there may be people who are like, who the hell is that? So, I normally would throw that question to you and say, who the hell are you? But like, I guess let me reframe the question this time. Who the hell are you in respect to the Wheel of Time community? Like, what do you do?
So I what do I do? I mean, I'm mouthy on Discord.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's accurate.
I do my best to be a supporter of as many of the channels as I can, because I actually love that there's all this WOT content out there, and all you content creators have done such an awesome job. So I kind of, I support a lot of the different channels there. So you see me a lot on YouTube floating around, tipping you to wear wigs,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I do get a kick out of that. I've written a whole boatload of wiki articles for the Great Blight. I work on I'm the marketing director for WatCon, and generally speaking, it's just like a Watt mega nerd.
You are the director of marketing for WatCon, which is a big deal. It's your full-time job now, actually. Joking aside, no, it's going to be a lot of fun. Daraus Sedai here is going. See, I said it right that time, didn't I?
Nailed it.
Yes. But here's the other thing that he downplayed. Not only is he a Watt follower and fan, he also happens, because he's written all of these wiki articles, he literally knows about everything when it comes to the Wheel of Time now. So hold up. Now, Adam, I was going to bring this up here in a moment. But you guys are going to have to, I'm not sure if that's going to cut it. I made a fancy graphic knowing, because it did arrive. It is over here, right off the camera. It's hitting. Let me show you something. Yep. That's how we're doing it. Because I can't just, I mean, we've got so many wigs. How do we decide what wig, and there we go. So the other thing to throw out there, I will buy another wig tonight if we get where we need to. So, which I think is over 100. I think I said I'll buy a wig every week on stream with whatever money you guys donate. We'll just buy wigs. So there we go. So we've got, and it's really more of a George Washington / I mean, it could be Mozart, I suppose. You saw me with it earlier. What is it?
I mean, it's kind of right on that line, because it feels like it's got the little like curly Q things. Looks a little like the wigs that they wear in British court, like kind of thing, which I guess fits either character. Like you could wear that to a Halloween costume for either George Washington or Mozart. And
well,
get away with it.
I think one thing we can agree on here is that wig looks awesome. So there we go.
It is going to be epic.
Now, to tease this, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through our 5 top Aes Sedai. And I would love to get some input from you all as we do it. Tell us whether our takes are good or bad. But also, I will be teasing this a little bit. Tarvalon After Dark comes back tomorrow. Which means, oh dang. All right, let me finish this. Here we go. We got a tip. We'll come back to that. Tarvalon After Dark comes back tomorrow, which means we have a new commercial and a new bedtime story for all of you to help go to sleep. And it is a doozy. So if you're lucky, we'll tease those a little bit tonight. So real quick, I'm going to make you the host because this big reveal has to be dramatic. So ask people about the weather or whatever you're going to do here. I will be right back.
Okay, I'm just going to go on record right now saying I can't see the chat from what I'm looking at.
So. Well, look at comments on the right.
Right? Yeah, like
you should be able to see them. You should be able to see them.
I can't see it.
No, not private chat. There's a comments.
I'm not seeing it.
User error. I'll be right back.
All right. So here I am going to just talk at you people. Like everyone's there. Yeah, Nae'Blis is off putting on a wig. So what can I tell you? Okay, so I'm going to make a call now. Still can't see the comments or anything. So apologies if I'm not responding to anything you're putting up there and I sound like a moron. But we are working on the wiki. Oh, wow.
The headphones really make it work. And my ponytail. And now, do you think they ever did this?
I mean, they kind of had to, right? It's like why have the little like thing if it's not going to be like, if you're not going to tug on your braid, why have a braid?
I guess I can tug on my braid now if you guys make me. This thing is like you guys can't see them because they're. My headphones, first of all, don't want to stay on with this thing. And second of all, there's like a bunch of little hairs that are like annoying that are hanging off of this. So, but it looks wonderful. I like my poof. Oh, I need to stop messing with it. Well, maybe I do. We'll have to get there, but I appreciate that. So back to what I was saying. So I will tease those things. I think for now, that is it. So let's go ahead and get on into talking about Wheel of Time, if you can take me seriously while I'm doing this. So
I think you think it's cute that I think I would take you seriously even without the wig.
That's fair. That's fair. So let me lay out the rules for everybody and kind of how we're approaching this, because we're going to go through the top 5 Aes Sedai, or at least our opinions on that are not the main character Aes Sedai. So who we're avoiding, like our Wonder Girls here. We're avoiding Swan and Moraine because they're major characters. So we kind of want to, in Varen, I would throw into that too, because I would consider Varen a fairly major character. I'm going to go ahead and also, just to be really difficult, throw in Cadsuane and say she is a major character as well. So we'll take them off them, because I will say this. Cadsuane, I'm just saying this, not really just saying this just to piss off Chansonnet, but I would have Cadsuane in my top 5. I actually think Cadsuane's a great character. But what are your thoughts on that before we move on? Good character, bad character?
She's a great character. She suffers from, I think, the audience not wanting to like her. Mm-hmm. Like, as I found over the years of rereads, she becomes less and less irritating to me, and you start realizing, like, oh, she's actually really like a great character. She's well written. She's got an interesting point of view. She's got different sorts of opinions than other Aes Sedai do, and it's sort of like I find myself resistant to the idea of liking her, though, because she's the Moraine replacement, right? Like, It's like, oh, like she comes in to replace a character that everybody loves, and it's really hard to like that character. So that's my
I think it's a combination of that and the fact that she deliberately is trying to provoke Rand when we first meet her, and we're seeing that through his eyes, right? And so all we think is, wow, what a bitch. like I can't believe she's doing that, right? Like,
right.
And I think that introduction gets us off to the wrong foot with her, but I really appreciate her as a character. I think she's realistic in some degrees. So anyways, okay. So those are our rules. It's none of the major characters. We're sort of focusing on more of the minor characters. So, all right. Well, who is your number 5?
All right, I'm gonna start with my hot take because I think people will really
Hot
dislike this.
take.
I think people will really dislike this choice, but there's a reason for it that kind of comes around. So I think Lelaine, Blue Ajah
Ooh.
sitter, she's actually a terrible human being, like horrible character. But what I think she adds to the story and why she's important is sort of for the same vein as like a lot of the reds that come in late in the series that everybody likes. She's the
Mhm.
first blue we really meet that's instantly characterized as not a good person. Like the very first time we meet a Blue Aja member that sort of sucks as a human. That's not a Black Aja. That's
Mhm.
just straight up like whatever. She lives in that sort of area, and she's just like a political monster. So I think she adds a lot to the story by being different than what the stereotypical, mindset of what a blue is supposed to be brings on.
I like that, and I think you're onto something with that too, because she does go against, like, at that point, all the blues are just nice old people, like,
Right.
right? You've got, by the way, we're going like full ass spoilers here. So like if you're like, I hate to say this, but like we're gonna spoil a
Sorry.
lot of shit. So if you're I don't want to be spoiled of anything. This is probably not the live stream to watch, because like I said, we're gonna spoil like every fucking thing. So I just said I
You did.
wash my
I thought
mouth,
I'd be the first one to drop the
wash
F
my
bomb on that.
mouth out with soap. Okay. But no, I do agree with that, because all of the blues, if you think about it, like Anaya is like this nice old lady who's super nice, and right, like who are the
Motherly.
mean
Yeah.
blues? Who are the mean blues? Like Shiriam
Megan.
obviously is
Yeah.
bad, but like not really.
We get Megan kind of towards the end of the series
Yeah.
too, like, but she just sort of has a bit character role, and you're like, okay. But other than that, I mean, really, it's like the main blues are Moraine, Swan, Leanna, Sheriam, Anaya. Like they're all like these sweet kind of, or like
Mhm.
driven, like you understand why
Yeah.
they're the way they are. Whereas like Lelaine, like she doesn't really even follow into the purpose of the blue, right? Like aren't you supposed to be about like causes and justice? I'm like, if your cause is creating justice for yourself, sure.
My
It's very much that way.
my problem with Lelaine is she has influence for no reason at all,
Right.
because she's
Like,
clearly bad at this. She got
yeah.
outsmarted by an 18-year-old. I'm just
Although
saying, like,
no, it's true. It's true. She is definitely like a literary device, like her and Ramonda, right? Like, and they're also like that whole like Jordan loved to do pairings of characters, right? So you'd have like these two always kind of shoved together. But I will also give Leland credit. She has the one scene in the entire books where I think Gawain says
mhm.
something smart, and he's sitting there and he's talking to her, and he realizes that she's deliberately trying to manipulate him by being pretty enough. But he has that whole like conversation in his head about this is a woman who understands how to use what the amount of beauty that she has to be
Mhm.
both non-threatening, and so like that's actually like an interesting moment that Gawain has that I'm like, huh, who knew? I could read a
No.
paragraph from Gawain's point of view and not hate it.
Well, I gotta go with this comment here too, because I think Ramonda and Lelaine are just terrible. Like they're they should not be influential because they suck at being influential.
Right. But I think it highlights that because they're both the strongest possible Aes Sedai, like in their time frame, it just kind of highlights the stupidity of their hierarchy too.
Which
Like
is also true.
they're influential because they're strong.
Yep. Although Ramonda has no excuse not to be smart. If you lived 320 years, you would think at some point you gathered some brains or something. I don't know. I just find some of the Aes Sedai to be absolutely idiotic.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Like so they're just so convinced that whatever they think or do or say is correct. Like it's actually one of the things with Moraine too. It's like she says so much crap at the beginning of the series it's just patently wrong.
totally
And
false.
everyone's like right, it's like, nope, wrong.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna hit my number 5.
Okay.
My number 5 is one that I think most people would not guess, and I'll tell you why I like her, and that is Daigyeon. So I love Daigyeon, and she doesn't have a very big role. So right off the bat, like if you're not familiar with who she is the weakest Aes Sedai that you meet in the entire series. She's like barely at the level to even get the shawl. She's that weak as a channeler. And basically what I love about her is that she's in Cadsuane's inner circle. Like, she's one of the ones that Cadsuane trusts the most, which, first of all, is one of the things I enjoy about Cadsuane, is that she doesn't give a shit about that stupid hierarchy. Right? Like, you don't
she
see
doesn't
her
have to, because she's at the top of it.
well,
so
but she doesn't. She certainly doesn't defer to Nynaeve, and I don't see her ever deferring to Nynaeve, regardless of her station. Right?
She just is like, you're not really Aes Sedai yet.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I wouldn't have seen Cadsuane deferring to Egwene maybe until she earned her respect, if that makes sense. But Daegion is, like, I think she's unique in the sense that I think she has some really cool viewpoints. Like, the few conversations that we see her in are, especially the one with Nynaeve, where she talks a little bit about how easy it is for Nynaeve to do these small weaves and how it took her months. I love that little conversation. I just find her to be an interesting character that I wish we got more of. I love how protective she is of Eben. And like, I just like her. She was one of my favorites, and I always liked when she was on screen, even though she was weak. I actually thought that was a great character point for her. So
I agree. She's actually on my honorable mention list of characters, because hey, I wrote the wiki about her.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually really enjoy her as a character as well. I think she's interesting, and I also think it's funny that all of the non-Aes Sedai characters that we get a point of view about her on all think of her as this like kind of prototypical sister. Like, they're like, oh yeah, don't mess with her. She's gonna insist on she's an Aes Sedai, and you got to do it. Right. So it's like she followed the Aes Sedai hierarchy to the letter. But man, if you weren't a sister, like, you were like, you will do as I say. I am in charge.
Right?
Yeah. It's like, okay, she's got this. She knows what she's doing.
If you think about it, like, even the weakest Aes Sedai in the Wheel of Time are extremely overpowered magic users. And I don't think people realize some of that. Like, there's times where it comes across because there's a lot of elements that can foil them, right, in the world, but like, they're really powerful. And like, the really, really powerful ones are like crazy, crazy powerful.
Oh yeah, like, I mean, people like Nynaeve or Rand or even like Egwene and the Wonder Girls, like, they could tear apart a city like no problem,
like obliterate it. And I mean, Rand literally takes out an army of 100,000 Trollocs by himself.
Yeah, he's like, I got this.
Like, that's nuts. Like, think about that. That's weapon of mass destruction. And then you give him like the Choden Call.
No wonder people were freaking out and thinking, oh, they'll break the world in half.
I mean, you literally could break the world in half. Literally. Yeah. Like, that's not a figurative break the world. Anyways, that's not what we're talking about. Okay. I will do my number 4 since we're on me. Okay. My number 4 today, and I honestly, all these mixed together, some of you who are Tarval and After Dark patrons will know that we talked about something a little similar to this, although I did pull out some characters that we talked about. But my number 4 is going to be Teslin. I very much enjoy, and you're actually going to catch a theme here on my list. I don't know why, but I love the Reds. The Red sisters are some of my favorite Aes Sedai. Specifically the ones that have a personality beyond I'm an evil bitch. Right? Like, does that make sense? Like, I love the Reds. And I by the way, Elida is not able to be on our list either. She's too much of a main character. So I'm throwing her off to the side. But because Elida would be on my list too. I love the Red Aes Sedai. I love them. And what I love about Teslin is she never does like just turn around and become like a follower of Egwene or anything like that. Like, in fact, she can't even go back. She tries to go back and can't, right? She's like, it isn't for me. But she's still somebody that's very supportive of Matt. She's appreciative of Matt, even though she's very rough-edged, right? She's not a pleasant person. But she's fair. And like, she has a compass to her. And I really enjoyed the interactions with Teslin, specifically the interactions with Teslin and Jolene, who I could not stand. Right? Like I couldn't. Jolene is everything. Jolene is everything wrong with the Aes Sedai.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but I loved Teslin and I liked her interaction. So Teslin's my
Well,
number four.
it's fun. Teslin is also on my list. She is by far and away my favorite Red. I've always loved her. And I think part of this is my own headcanon that I sort of created about like why she was the way she was. I have no idea where this came from. So it's not in the books, but it's my interpretation of some of her underlying behavior. Like the fact that she can't even like have a man touch her. She's like very cringy like that at the beginning when you first kind of meet her, and what a big deal it is when she shakes Rand's hand or Matt's hand. That to me is such a moment because like in my headcanon, she was an abused child, like a male relative of hers abused her before she went to the tower. That is how I imprinted that into my mind. And then it becomes a bigger deal to me because it's like she's overcome this because she sees this man who can be a good person, who can be her friend. And it's like this breakthrough moment for her. So I know I made all that up in my own headcanon, but I see that in this character. I see this sort of intellectualized version of her. And I don't know, I really have always enjoyed that character because of the same reasons that you just mentioned. And that she went through some trauma as a Damani, you know, but she then learns to see the world from a different perspective. So I think she's really
she has growth. She has growth. And by the way, so I know we were just talking about Teslin, but because we mentioned it. I mean, by the way, Dolly Parton is a treasure, so I just thought I'd throw that out there. I'm a Dolly Parton stan. She should play an Aes Sedai in the show. Rafe, make it happen. Okay, what Aes Sedai would you cast Dolly Parton as?
Varen.
You think Varen?
Absolutely. Like
she's not going to play that. But she's not going to play that role though. She's gonna do like a cameo type. Like, so what Aes Sedai could she play that would sort of be cameo-esque?
I mean, she could definitely do. Oh, that's a good question. Now I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, who could she do? Because there's not a lot of them that actually have like great senses of humor. And Dolly's funny. Like,
Here we go. Ryan Patrick.
Oh, that.
Totally
I can see
agree.
her. Yep, nailed it.
Of course, I don't see her going into a sweat tent, but.
No,
wow.
But
Chansonnet wants her to be Chesmal.
She's not going to be Chesmal fucking Emery. That's
not Chesmal Emery. Okay.
Oh, that's great.
So Teslin was on your list.
Yes.
Well, why don't you go ahead and give us your next one here?
Okay, so my next one, I'm gonna go. It's sort of a cheat because it's a pair. It's a pair. The Namel sisters. I think Vandine and Adelaus. Vandalaeus. Like I find them as
you're shipping the two of them. I got you.
Right, but they're great characters because I think they're brought in early on in the series as just these sort of like little hermits that I think are meant to be kind of throwaway, and then he's like, I'll bring some back later, whatever. But they give you this like kind of cool perspective on just being like a cranky old lady Aes Sedai that's just sort of like whatever. And then you see so much of what the Aes Sedai kind of system is through their interactions with Elaine and Nynaeve. And I think they enhance the story, not necessarily by being great characters, but by being this sort of like exposition type character. Or like, oh, I'll just talk to Vandine. Vandine taught me how to do the masking of the bond, and like that kind of stuff. So you learn stuff through them as this like literary device almost. So I've always found them interesting that way. And I do think that like the whole, spoiler death, of both of them, but like certainly of Adelaus, like you start realizing when you think about that for a minute, you're like, these two women were like 300 years old. They're siblings that are like 2 years age difference. They've lived 300 years together. And then one of them is suddenly murdered. How do you think the other one's going to react? Like,
right?
Seeing that is like, it's powerful when you really like think you're like, holy cow, like, like, how do you even cope with that? So I thought I like them.
Agreed. I love those two. They were honorable mentions for me. They're not on my list, but they could have been. they always bring up the interesting point to me too. Like they're kind of like semi-retired Aes Sedai, right?
Mhm.
Sort of like Ramonda kind of was. Think about this. So I'll have to remake this video because it's garbage. So don't go looking for it. But I did a video on like the richest people in the Wheel of Time.
Mhm.
And so like we find out that Aes Sedai get 10,000 gold crowns a year as their salary. So I did like a video breaking down the monetary system and trying to somewhat translate it. And there's a few things that could be done differently in it. But the bottom line is that's the equivalent of a couple $1,000,000. Okay. And they get paid that every year. Now, that's a lot of money if you made that now, right? Think about if you make that over the course of 300 years, right? And then your money invests in banking and like they're obviously not spending all of it.
Right.
That's a
They're
lot.
buying books. Right.
Like that's an insane amount of money. So anyways, I just thought I'd throw that out there. I was thinking about like they're all retired in this little shack, but like do they have just like mountains of gold somewhere, or is there like some bank where they've got notes to say right?
Like yeah, like because there's an interesting sort of like change in the money dynamic of of the books too, where like we hit this certain point where they never like they all the main characters have so much money available to them that they just
Yep.
never think twice about it. Like here's Egwene funding a giant army, like in the middle of nowhere. You're like, where's she getting the money to pay these soldiers? Where is this coming from? Right?
Well,
Like
and
you do
Matt's
hit
the
that
same
point,
thing.
but
Matt is funding soldiers by gambling. Like
it's like okay, like there's definitely a little bit of suspension of disbelief happening in some of that.
well, there's some I would imagine I said I have access to money though. Like you would think they've got
Yeah.
notes and the way banking would work in a time like that. Like
Right,
obviously I
because
think they
Moraine
would have
hands Nynaeve like 3,000 gold crowns or whatever, like a check. She's like, here,
yeah,
go to the bank.
right?
Like,
Like and get more if you need it, right?
yeah.
There's like the eyes that I have money. And I think even then like a banker would be inclined to lend money to an Aes Sedai just because of who they are, right?
Right.
So I do find the economics of the Wheel of Time interesting. I think there's another video in that. Now I want to stop for a second and I want to talk about this because I saw this come up here. Hold on, let me find this. So I said, Nae'Blis, don't go looking for this video. It's trash. Turns out it's secondary. It's not. It's actually not a very highly viewed video because it's trash. However, what I did find funny, so I released a video this morning, which if you haven't watched that, watch it. It's on the news, Weekly Wheel of Time News. There's a contest in it. So, okay, my contest was give me an idea for a lore video you would love for me to make. Now, for those of you who have watched a lot of my videos, I dare you to go down and read this list. I would say a good 75% of them are like videos that I've made. And it tells me it's like I've got a shitload of videos that I don't know. Like there are people like you should make a Shara video. I'm like, well, I've made two. You should do one on Manetherin. I made one a month ago. Like, so what I've realized is I need to tell people about some of my older videos because I don't think everybody goes back and like just looks at them. Because there's a lot of those out there. People were, yeah. Anyways, just thought it was funny. But yes, that video is trash. There's my highest viewed video ever is just it's stupid because it just keeps getting more and more views. I'm gonna break 200,000 views on it here in not I would say in the next month or two. And it's a terrible video. Like I misspell all the names. Like it's the one where I call Narishma like Narshima or something like that. And it's so bad in every way. Like my rating system is bad, but yet people watch it for some reason. Well, YouTube recommends it. That's why. But real quick update. I got to show this because some people missed the graphic. I like that it's a fancy graphic now. So anyways. All right, you did yours. I'm going to move on to my number 3 now. My number 3 is Alviarin. I enjoy her quite a bit. What I love, obviously, she's Black Ajah. I like that she pulls the strings, and I like that she's actually competent. Like, she's a competent Black Aja person, but she also gets her shit flipped on her at a certain point. Like, she overplays her hand a little bit, and um Elida catches on. And I thought that part was cool because it looked there for a while like it was almost just too easy, right? But anyways, what I did love about her is how she tries to like befriend Egwene, and like Egwene is just not having it.
Yeah.
But she's competent. Like, she's a Black Aja who's competent, because most of the other Black Aja that we see are also completely incompetent.
Yeah.
Like,
I fully like that. That's one of the reasons I've always liked Aviaran as well. Like, she's not on my list, but she's definitely one of those characters that you find intriguing when you read. I think it's because, like, to me, she's like, she just doesn't get enough like interesting screen time. But what she does gets, like, because I love their like that. I wish they'd played more into this, where she was trying to figure out who Misana was in the tower. Like, she's the first person who gives you sort of like a good like hint of like, some of these people are going to start figuring out who you're hiding as, right?
right.
And the fact that I wish it went further. So I think that always sort of was a miss to me. It was like, man, it would have been great if she'd actually figured it out. Like, if she'd figured out who Misana was, right? Like, I think I would have enjoyed that more than Misana staying hidden like for as long as she did. Like, I think it would have been interesting, but
I think it's actually really cool. The hints of Misana and who she was are actually there in Shadow Rising.
Right?
Like,
right off the bat.
They're there. And it's like right there, and you're like, oh my God, he planted that seed that early. He does that so well. Like, and it's obvious now, not obvious, but if you know who Misana was, then you read it and you're like, oh my gosh, that's obvious. Like,
right. Clearly. That's it. Like, how did we miss that?
And it makes more sense now about how Elida was able to succeed. Right?
Yeah.
And because it didn't make sense to me how Elida could pull that off.
Right. Like, the whole like rebellion thing, the whole overthrow, you're like, I get it, but like, I don't understand why it went down the way it did. But then you realize you've got Misana who's sitting there, and it's not even really that Elida pulled it off. It was that there was also a rebellion, because she also in the meantime was like, hey, Sheriam, you and this other half of these Black Aja chicks are going that way. Like, orchestrated the whole thing and creates this, let's split the tower up. Like,
Misana was
surprisingly effective.
I was going to say, she was sneaky effective. She's up there with the Forsaken who actually do something.
Right.
Like, she does more than accomplished. She does more than Lanfear does. Lanfear helps
miles more.
Lanfear helps out Rand more than anybody.
Yeah.
Like, without actually, Rand would have died without her. Other little known fact people don't realize, Lanfear actually healed Rand of the stab from Ishii that he would have died from.
Oh, in Great Hunt?
Yep.
Yeah. It's like, okay. Like, there's some interesting like tidbits in there, because like Misana is super underrated because she is sort of a second-rate chosen. Let's be honest. Grendel says it best, like, it's like, really, she just doesn't have the presence to be there, but she got shit done. Like, if I was gonna pick somebody to be on my team, I'll take her.
She's got the dramatic entrances down too. She does the whole like ghosty, wavy, black, like whoa thing. Yeah, she's got that
it's
down.
Old Man Smithers under the.
She's a Dementor basically. Like, that's Misana as the Dementor. All right, totally. Who is your? Well, I think we did your number 3, right?
I did. So I've done Teslin, Bandine Adelius, and Lelaine are the 3.
Okay, hold up, because we're gonna get through these too quickly. I think it might be time for a small break. Who wants to see a commercial? Does anybody think it's time for a commercial? Doesn't look like anybody wants one. Of course, the chat's delayed, but I might just go ahead and play a commercial. So, Tarvalin After Dark is back tomorrow. We are back tomorrow morning. And this is not, we're not doing Better Call Saul. This is a brand new commercial. Brand new. This is the world premiere. And you better listen to the podcast because actually I think this podcast, the one we did yesterday, was a banger. So here we go.
Want to use the Waze, but can't find a guide? Do Ogier tell you to screw yourself when you ask for help? Does no one understand how important your travel plans are? Introducing Waze for the Waze, the navigation app that will change your life. You don't need an Ogier to guide you. Just type in your location and let Waze for the Waze do the rest.
Walk 200 paces. Turn right at the guiding stone with Trollocs melted into it. Take exit 3 after the bridge, or you will fall into a bottomless pit, screaming until you go mad and eventually die.
Say goodbye to your nightmares about Makin Shin. With Waze for the Waze, you can avoid whatever the hell that thing is.
Warning, black wind ahead. Rerouting to avoid a fate worse than death. That thing will mess you up.
Leave your Ogier friends alone and download our app today. Waze for the Waze. Without it, you're pretty much fucked.
I love Jess's Waze voice.
That's my favorite part. Warning, Black Abyss. Oh man.
So if you want more commercials and bits like that, make sure to check out Tarvalin After Dark. You could find that wherever you get your podcasts. It will come out like 9 o'clock tomorrow, actually early tomorrow morning. So like if you want something to listen to on the way to work, this is a good thing to listen to. Basically, if you're familiar, like, how would you describe the podcast?
I mean, I think it's like there's a bit of sketch comedy to it. There's a bit of news, and there's a bit of like WAP discussion, right? Mm-hmm. Like just sort of, but a lot of it is the dynamic between the three personalities, like in the way you guys kind of operate. It's like you riff off of each other a lot, even when you're like, like, okay, we're gonna do a commercial or whatever. But you guys still have this, like, it's about your banter and your interaction too. Like, it's fun. So.
Well, I think, I enjoy it a lot. We are all very different, which is great. We have very different opinions. I'm right and they're wrong. So yeah. Oh goodness. Might be time.
Uh-oh.
Might be time.
Woo!
We need to come up with like a. Hold on a second.
That wing is ridiculous. Oh man. I didn't ever think there would be something that could top the Boris Karen wig.
Well, now my headphones are pushing this poof up even more. So, like it's
like your headphones are like like a deliberate, like a bump it. Mm-hmm. Oh, the level of ridiculous that brings is just fantastic.
Andrew, I will make sure it is out at 7 a.m. for you. Okay, 7 a.m. But yes, here we go. And of course, I will pull my braid. It looks like I'm. There we go.
Yes.
I mean, I see that. I do see that.
Yeah.
It look like Marie Antoinette right now. Well, I think we're at like $50. If we have to get like to another 50 for me to buy another wig for next week. I always do the we'll do the Amazon Prime shipping, so we make sure we have a new wig to debut next week for those that like it. But okay, back to our hardcore discussion of that you're going to be wrong about, but probably
wrong.
not.
I'm going to be so wrong. Okay,
You're going to be so wrong about your number 2.
So my number 2, again, like I picked some more obscure characters here deliberately, but I'm gonna go with Honora. Honora is an interesting character to me because she's in the same vein as Diane, right? She's not very strong in the power relative to the hierarchy, but she also is sort of this very independent, like she's not attached to any of the sort of like factions at the beginning. She's ballsy enough to like show up in Kyrian and hang out, like hide from Rand to be there for Berelain, and you're like, okay, like this is actually somebody who's doing something that really is important to her. She's been this advisor to Berelain. She takes great pride in that. She works hard. She's willing to put her life at risk essentially to like show up where this army of like crazy people are. And then the first time we really see her, she's being shielded by Ashaman. She's standing there watching Kalaver be like deposed by Rand. And she's like, it's cool. I'm not here to hurt you. And doesn't even blink. And you're like, oh, she's got this down. Like, so I think she's kind of a low-key badass. And she does wind up, you do then see her kind of suffer as a character, like as she goes off with Perrin and she winds up like she's still not attached to the wise ones, but the Aes Sedai, like the sisters that are with her, are way higher than her in the hierarchy. So she winds up sort of de facto under the wise ones,
right?
But still sort of rebels, right? It still sort of tries to show her independence in there. So I kind of respect her for being like quintessential old school Aes Sedai that way.
Well, and then she burns herself out, which is
right.
Like...
She actually does give up like her life, so to speak, to make amends with Berelain.
Yep. I like Honora a lot. There's a lot of Aes Sedai that I like, and there's a lot that I just can't stand. But we could make another list on those. We talked about 2 of them. Ramonda and Lelaine to me are just, well, you like Lelaine, but I can't stand her.
I think she's an important character, not necessarily the same thing.
You said you love her. She's your favorite. Okay, my number 2 is one I said you could probably see this coming. My number 2 is Pavara. Pavara is the first red character that doesn't at all seem like if we weren't told she was a red, I wouldn't believe she was a red. Right? Like she comes across very differently. She has very different radical, I would call radical points of view for a red Ajah sitter, which is amazing that she achieved that level of leadership within that group. But what I think I appreciate about her is we actually, surprisingly, I think she's one of the best developed Aes Sedai because of the way Sanderson wrote her in the conversations that we get with Andral and the fact we get POVs from her. She's one of the lesser characters that gets a lot of POVs.
Yeah.
And so because of that, obviously she's going to be a little bit more developed, but I really like her look at the world. I like that she finally, like, age matters. Like she's 140 or so. And like, you see that wisdom, not like Ramonda, who's an idiot, right? Like just an absolute idiot.
No, Ramonda's stupid.
Egwene yells, "Don't channel." And then she channels and I just stupid shit. Like, I'm sorry. I just find Ramonda to be the biggest idiot.
Oh my God.
But I really, really like Pavara. And she represents because at the beginning of the story, the Red Ajah are baddies. And even when it isn't all Sanderson, like Robert Jordan even wrote her differently. When we're first introduced to her, she's different, right? So I really like that about her. So yes, Pavara.
I do too, because like, I mean, almost the first thing that we learn about Pavara is that she was like headed for the green, and then this whole Dark Friend thing happened, and so she chose the red instead. And you're like, so it's like you get this like perspective on her right off the bat. But that also gives you a weird little bit, because I used to remember I struggled with that for a while. I was like, why the hell would she choose the red if she's like wanted to go like find Dark Friends? But it kind of tells you the sort of like law enforcement sort of angle that the reds really is part of their purpose, even though they don't necessarily like always follow that piece of it. But the greens aren't. Like the greens turn out to be kind of assholes in my head, really. Like, I mean, you look at it and you're like,
they're
okay,
shitty.
they're just,
what do they do?
Like right. They're just like, whatever. Like they don't do anything. They don't go out there. Like, why aren't you hanging out in the borderlands helping, the like slaughter Trollocs in the blight? Like
that's one thing conceptually that they're doing in the show, at least they've implied in the show, that I like a lot.
Same.
Is that they're leaning into the reds are basically the magical law enforcement, right? Like that's what they are.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that.
Me too. I think that's a great sort of little tweak, right? It's not really a huge change, but they're making it more overt, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Like Pavara she's like that quintessential red that you meet that you're supposed to like, and they make her likable. She's got a sense of humor. She's a radical thinker, to your point, within the red, and you're just like, okay, here's this woman who's like, we should have warders. Why wouldn't the reds have warders? It's stupid for us not to have warders.
Right.
Right. It's just like, it doesn't make any sense. Right?
Well, and it does bring up the point, what would make someone like, you have to think about like the way they're presented early on is literally all of the reds are, how do I put this? And again, I want to make sure, obviously people don't want you to misunderstand this, but I feel like Robert Jordan wrote the reds early on in a very stereotypical lesbian, like that's what it's what the stereotypes of lesbians were in the 90s, is I feel like the way that he was writing them. Not that that's how they are, right? What I'm saying
but
is
that's
it's like
that, but that was his reference, right? That was the reference point he was using.
That's what it felt like. These man-hating feminist lesbians is basically what they were in the way that he wrote them. And I like that they evolved out of that, because that's an awful generalization, number one. It's not an accurate one, and like it feels very disingenuous, because like what outside of, like you mentioned, like trauma with Teslin, like I'm trying to think like what would motivate somebody to be, because it's not as though men in the world of the Wheel of Time dominate everything to the point that it's like finally I can be powerful. Like that isn't the case in this world.
I feel like there's a lot of different kinds of imbalance going on in Wheel of Time. Like on one level you have like nations like Altara or Formatting, which are so female dominated that the men are oppressed, and then you have places like Tyr where they oppress the women, like whatever. So I feel like there's a lot of that sort of back and forth, but there's not a whole lot of like reason for like political reason. I think I always kind of in my head canon around the reds and why they kind of are the way they are, and this is sort of in the books, but it's like we're talking about, like it's kind of lonely eventually when you realize like you can't create any kind of bond with any male, because you never know who's going to turn out to be a male channeler, and then you have to destroy them, right? Like, so there's this sort of isolationist thing that goes along with them, which I kind of get, but I don't like it. I'm glad it played out where characters like Vivara came in and showed that not all of these women become this like kind of isolated, angry kind of place, because that's not realistic.
Like Teslin,
right?
She's actually a great example of that. So, okay, I'll give you my number one now. I have a feeling our number ones might be the same, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
My number one, again, I said this would be a common theme, is Sylviana. I loved how that entire arc played out. I love that Sylviana represents the Red Ajah well, right? In a very similar way to Teslin. Like she's not the radical that Pavara is. But she is somebody that is a good person fundamentally. And I think where I struggle with anything, and I don't just mean fantasy, I don't mean Wheel of Time, is when people make sweeping broad statements. Because like I would, like I'm not straight, right? Let's put it that way. But like a lot of people would assume that. And I think when all gay people are like this, or all like anything, people make statements like that about anything. And I don't just mean to bring up that, but and I don't think those things are accurate. So I feel like when Robert Jordan painted with the brush that all reds are this way, sort of the same way that all white cloaks are evil bricks, right? I feel like painting with those brushes like that is very easy. Like it's weak writing to me. in that sense because there is no nuance to it. Where Sylviana comes in is she fits all of the things that we expect out of somebody from the red, but at the same time, she has an inner morality to her. She's not evil. She doesn't hate men. She just doesn't like men, right? And
Right.
she still doesn't like men. She doesn't
Right.
like Gawain. She doesn't. Like,
I mean, that's fair though. Come on.
and put me in the red Ajah if that's the case, then, because I don't like Gawain either. But like, I throw that out there just because I feel like she does such a great job of breaking that mold even further. Like there was a deliberate choice to make it so not all the reds are bad. And I'm happy about that.
I do feel like Jordan was sort of setting up with that broad stroke thing at the beginning. And I do think he was setting the stage to show us that it's not all, it's like the Monet, right? Like when you're back here, it looks like this, but when you get up close, you see the unique individuals. Because I did that a lot with a lot of different characters. And Sylviana, okay, so I deliberately didn't pick Sylviana for this list because I was like, of course she's gonna come up, right? She is an incredibly good character. I love the way that she stuck to her guns. Like it was just sort of like, even when she decided ultimately, she's like, no, Elida's a psychopath. This is wrong, right? Like, and you're like, she's like, but she didn't change her belief system. She was just like, well, this is wrong. This doesn't fit. So I do love that. But I picked out another random kind of like, and mine aren't necessarily ranked 1 to 5, but I'll say Madani is the last one that I put on my list. And the reason I like Madani is because I feel like she's one of the few characters, like Aes Sedai characters, that we see more of who she is as a person than we see who she is as an Aes Sedai. We see this bit of her where like we go into her private rooms and we see the things that she has done in her life, the places that she's gone, the things that she's proud of. We see that she's also like had this relationship with Elida as a kid, and knowing like I also think it's brave. I think she's like brave as shit. Like, yeah, she was under orders or whatever and kind of didn't have as much choice, but she still did the best with it she could, right? She knew the cat was out of the bag, and she's still sitting there trying to fake it for Elida and try to make it seem like she doesn't know what's going on. So I found that nuance of like, this is a person who's literally in like the worst possible case scenario, gets trapped in this situation where she has no choice but to live up to this moment. And she still kind of did it. And even like, I love that sort of scene through Egwene's eyes when she's like realizing, she's like, this woman's terrified. And she's still barely clinging on to like this facade of Aes Sedai calm. But then like that whole scene in her room is one of my favorite little scenes of Aes Sedai, sort of like, this is who she is and she's interesting. They got a couple of other little tidbits. Like I think we see some room like Swana's room with the herbs and a couple of things like that. But Madani's is just so specific and so stands out as her that I always appreciate that piece of the characterization there.
Yeah, I like that. I like that choice. It's out of left field a little bit, but I like it. I like it. And I do find it like the whole Egwene forcing her to acknowledge that she's the Amerlin type thing. I like. I will admit, as cool as Egwene's moments in the tower are, a lot of them feel very unrealistic to me. Just because it's like, I don't care how cool this girl thinks she is. She's still 18. I'm 198. like, think about how your grandma treats you, even now, right? Like, right? Like, there's, you know, it's not talking to you like you know what you're talking about, and so I just mean it in the sense that like I find that somewhat unrealistic. But I thought that, again, her interactions with Madani and with Sylviana, I thought were very telling.
Yeah. They felt they had a weight to them and a realness to them of like, okay, like she's actually earning these people's respect a little bit, even though she maybe it was a little too easy, but still like it's there. I do like those kinds of bits. Like I felt less so like some of the honorable mentions that I would have would be like Saren, right? Everyone loves Saren. Yeah. She's a badass. So like she carries a giant knife and has scars. You're like, okay, like she kick your ass with or without the power. I also like the other random character that I throw on the honorable mention is I always say her name wrong. Sionid, green. And I love her because I think she's actually the one lesbian character in the entire series that they're just sort of like, oh yeah, whatever. She's gay. She doesn't look at men like that. It's cool. Like the wise ones are just like, yeah. They're like, she's not evil. She doesn't have that sort of tropey.
She's not red.
Like,
she doesn't hate men.
Right. She doesn't have that like man hater kind of lesbian kind of vibe going on. She just happens to also be a lesbian, and it was like no big deal. Right.
To be very clear, by the way, we are not saying that we think of all lesbians as hating men. Like, not at all that. We're talking about the fact that there's a trope that Robert Jordan wrote that way, right? Because I was hearing you say that, and I'm like, if somebody tuned in at the wrong time, they'd be thinking like, oh yeah, crazy lesbians that hate men,
All of a sudden, you're going to get like 100,000 followers of the wrong sort.
Yep. Well, you know what? If that's what it takes, I'm joking.
Hey.
I'm joking.
Monetize it, man.
Yep. Monetize that hate, man. It's the new thing on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's easy to hate something. So I think for a moment here, let's talk. I want to throw this out there. Chat. I'm going to play another Tarval and After Dark sketch, a brand new one. Because I know all of you guys are getting tired. It's getting late. And some of you want some Wheel of Time content that you can share with your children. And so I thought we would put together another bedtime story for you, a brand new one. This is a new bedtime story, and I hope it'll help you all sleep. But while that's playing, I want to know who we left off our list. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. And you guys think of who we left off, and we'll talk about him when we get back. So here we go. And now it's time for a bedtime story from Emmons. Once upon a time, a little girl named Elena lived with her family in the village of Watch Hill. Watch Hill was a very happy place. Villagers worked on their farms, they raised sheep, and they had lots of fun festivals where everybody had so much fun. While the mommies and the daddies of the village worked in their fields, the little boys and girls of the village would go to their schoolhouse to learn all about how things worked. They would learn about animals and science, and they would read fun books like The Adventures of Jane Farstrider. Elena loved to go to school every day. She had lots of friends that she got to hang out with at school, and they loved to have fun together. Sometimes, Elena and her friends would play pranks on the teacher, and they would misbehave. Their teacher, named Mrs. Alcar, would say, if you children don't behave, you're going to have to find a new teacher, and they'll probably be meaner than me. But Elena and her friends just kept misbehaving and playing pranks. One day, Mrs. Alcar said that she had taught the little shits long enough and left during the middle of class. When the kids came back the very next day for school, there was a new teacher. She was very scary. The new teacher looked like she was floating, and she was wearing all black, and you could barely see her face. Hello, children. I am your new teacher. I've been a teacher for a very long time, so you will learn some discipline. What is your name, teacher? Asked Elena. Why, young girl, my name is Messaana. Our first lesson today will be about discipline. Then 5 men dressed in black with capes that didn't move came into the schoolhouse, and they didn't have any eyes. I heard some of you were misbehaving. Come up here, children. I want you to meet the Murdral. Then Elena's friends who had misbehaved were brought up front, and the men in black used their big black swords to cut all of their limbs off. Elena's friends were just little stumps now. It did not look very fun. Elena heard one of her friends yell, "Ouch!" Elena realized that she should probably behave from here on out. The Murdral put Elena's friends in little harnesses and hung them from the walls, and they kept yelling, "Ouchie!" These children will be examples to all of you of what happens when you disobey me. By the way, I killed all your families. Now you're going to come with me to Sheo Ghul. Then Messana took Elena and the other children to a big mountain, and they were used to make more black swords for the Murdral. The end.
Oh, that is so twisted. The end.
You don't think that would put kids to sleep?
I mean, sure.
I mean, they as Johnson said, they took a field trip to Sheo Ghul. Who doesn't
Right?
love a good field trip?
It's true. You know, it's true. I mean,
And you know what? They didn't even have to get permission slips signed because their parents were gone.
right?
You know,
It had already been slaughtered. It's perfect.
yeah, it's.
Oh, it's fantastic. All right, who do people think we missed? Who did we miss?
So I see a lot of Ciane, which I could get
Okay.
behind.
Same.
Samitsu, who saved Dobrain. I like Samitsu. Morella.
Yeah.
The she is the sex therapist. Yukiri, who I almost did pick. I almost did pick Yukiri. I like Yukiri.
Yeah.
Everybody says Hattori, but I don't get that.
I mean,
I'm not
Hattori,
buying.
like, I don't. I like the. I actually like Sleet better than Hattori. Like, Sleet was the character. Hattori was the reference. Like, I feel like she didn't really have much of a role, like other than what Sleet had to say about her, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking the right person, right? Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I don't get it. I just don't. I don't kick it behind that one.
Fair enough.
Who else? Liana Sharif. Which
See, I left her up because I thought she was a big enough character to not include on this list. I feel like she's like one of those like Swan, where it's like she's got a significant enough role to where it felt a little too big. But that's
I get that. I'm not
arbitrary.
really a huge fan of her anyway. I don't know.
I liked her in bits and pieces. Like I liked when she.
When was she
sort
cut
of,
up into
like-
bits and pieces?
After the Murdral took her family.
Ah,
I liked her when she got like green Ajah and sort of was like, oh, okay, like she became kind of funny, but almost in a caricature way. Like I think it went a little too far with that.
Yeah.
I think is where my problem was. But
well, now this one is a great point. I don't know if we can count it because I love me some Satala Anon.
Me too.
I like her quite a bit.
Same.
Great character.
Yes.
Which I always thought it was odd how she bonded with Tuon.
I always thought it was interesting too, but I think it's the intellectual. Like she knew she could sit there and debate. Like I feel like she thought she was teaching Tuon something.
Yep.
Although maybe if the ending had been different, it would have mattered. But no.
Well, Tuon is my favorite character in the series. So,
I mean, who doesn't love a good slave trader? Sorry. That the answer should be everyone should not love a slave.
But I love Tuon. Joking, but it was interesting. So yeah, that was a fun little. We didn't kill each other because I think for the most part we agreed. We'll have to pick a topic next time that like we totally disagree on, just to fight about it.
Just a fight.
Just to fight, or I'll just decide to disagree with you.
Right. I mean, you could always do that. Right. Look, I mean, we could pick a topic, that is sort of like the Aes Sedai who really are just sort of ass bags.
There are quite a bit of them.
Oh yeah, that's actually I think harder because this kind of exercise, I feel like everybody kind of likes the same ones. There's not like as much like there's the ones that you like, and then there's all the rest of them that pretty much you hate. All right.
One that I'm not sure if you caught on that I don't like is Ramonda.
Wait, what? Really?
It's actually
I
not
have
that
no
I
idea.
dislike Ramonda. I just think she's useless.
She's Ramonda. Like her death was so like wah, wah. Like you're stupid. Like you are in fact stupid. I like that one. I don't know what to even make of that. Like, why would you? Like, I never understood why the other sitters glommed on until I figured out, like, after the fact, the whole like conspiracy theory and the Ajah heads, and so you're like, oh, they were actually. So I do think that could be played out better. Is the factions in the Rebel Hall that were basically like theoretically led by Lelaine and Ramonda, but they really weren't. Yeah, it was the sitters that had been sent by the Ajah heads were kind of manipulating that too. And I think that would have been, they leaned in, if Jordan leaned into that a little bit more, I think it would have made Ramonda and Lelaine seem less stupid too, because of that. It's like, oh, you've got these other like highly intelligent, manipulative women also sort of pulling the strings behind the scene.
Yeah, they shouldn't have been played by an 18-year-old, even with Swan's help. Swan's only 40. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So
you're like, you're not exactly 200 years old either.
Yeah, I just don't get it. So maybe Ramonda was senile. Okay, so guys, a couple things here before we go. I want to throw this up on the screen because it's important. WatCon. Hey, are you going to be at WatCon?
I mean, I'm planning on it.
Well, yeah,
I've already bought my ticket.
You're literally planning it. So I would imagine literally planning it. So yes, WatCon is coming up on July 8th through the 10th here in Columbus, Ohio, provided we don't have another COVID apocalypse. So get vaccinated. It is vaccines required. So if you are a white cloak, I'm sorry. But yes, we would love for you to join us there. We're going to have a lot of fun. It is going to be a very different feeling convention, I think. There are something along the lines of like 20 different creators involved that are going to be there. On top, like Matt Hatch is the MC for the event. Our programming is going to be different in the sense that there's going to be like a centralized program, and then a bunch of like, panel breakout things like that. But like something that I think everybody will want to be a part of. If you like Tarval and After Dark, honestly, I think you're going to enjoy this. So I see somebody asking how many tickets are left. We are a little bit above half right now. So like half full. So get your tickets soon, because I think the big period where they're going to start filling up is now. And JordanCon, which by the way, we're both going to be at too. So if you want to meet me, get to JordanCon. But if JordanCon does not open up more tickets, like, because I know they're nearing their capacity, there will probably be a big run on these for people that want to go. So make sure to get yours soon. We will have a virtual option. However, that won't come for a little bit, but that'll come. But yeah, pick up your ticket. And honestly, if you can, I get virtual. Like if you have to do that, do that. There is no replacement, I think, for being there in person, because that is the most fun parts of these things. Is it like we met the first time? Obviously, we knew each other before we went, but met in person at JordanCon, and I think we ate breakfast like every day, and just hung out. And I just thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, and that. Come hang out.
It was a blast. I mean, I do think that's where I'm excited about, both obviously, but I feel like with WatCon, that's kind of like such a kind of core tenet is the like, we want to hang out with people. It's like, we
Pretty
want
much.
this to be like, let's have fun. Let's interact and not just sort of be like in the same place talking about the same thing. It's like, let's, get to know each other and be a community. That's my big thing for it anyway.
Ooh, somebody mentioned something that we should talk about, and it is true. There is food included in the WatCon ticket, and it's like banquets. So the main ticket has a banquet and 2 lunches as a part of it. The VIP ticket has 2 banquets, 2 lunches, and all you can eat out of the snack room, basically, and all you can eat and drink out of there. It's like snacks and drinks and things. So that is going to be a lot of fun. And there are dietary restrictions, like, so you can put that in. Like, I mean, if you only eat elephant, we'll try to accommodate you. But yeah, we're really looking forward to it quite a bit, actually. Tony the Tinker will be there for those of you that watch Tarvon After Dark, and he's really looking forward to it. So,
will there be a Marge? Will there be a Marge the therapist like
we'll
breakout
have to.
session?
When is WatCon? WatCon is July 8th through the 10th of this year in Columbus. And where can they go if they want to find out more information?
You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. There's Facebook stuff, and also WatCon.com.
Yep. Head to all of those things. So
that's all at WatCon-official.
But thank you for coming on tonight. Appreciate you being here. Hope you had fun. And for those of you that want to continue the conversation, we're going to hop over into Discord and chat up a little bit there. How hot is Columbus in July? Probably 90s, mid 90s. It gets fairly humid here. So, but okay. We'll go ahead and end this. So we'll be back here. I have actually 2 more videos coming out this week. Go watch the news video that came out earlier today, if you have not seen that. And then go check out all the old lore videos that you guys are asking me to make that actually already exist. Some of them are there. Just avoid the bad ones. Okay. So if you want to join us in Discord, click the link in the description. Thank you all for coming, and good night.